Hello, my beautiful doves. My name is Mina, and on this channel, I talk about fashion, media, and things happening in the culture.
Entertainment and technology
Go to Netflix.com.
are continuing to transform each other as they have been doing for over 100 years.
Now streaming.
Coming to Netflix this May.
$22 a month. $16 a month. $18 a month.
Guys, we did cable TV dirty. I want you back. I'm sorry.
Our very own independent streaming service, Watcher.
For $5.99 a month.
$6, man? Absolutely not.
This video is sponsored by ThredUp, an online consignment and thrift store. ThredUp offers an extensive range of styles and sizes and is overall a great way to switch up your closet more sustainably than buying new. ThredUp currently offers more than 55,000 brands and more than 4 million unique items are available to shop every single day. Here's some of the items I got, so let me show you how I styled them. I decided to style the Mariam Nasserzadeh top and Burberry headscarf I got together to make this sort of like pinup / 1960s new wave inspired look. As an aside, I love putting bold greens, blues, and reds together. So yeah, this is like candy to me, this outfit. I also got these shorts, which are D-Squared, which is a Canadian-Italian brand that I already liked a lot. So I was stoked to see them listed on ThredUp. Also, if you've been following me on Instagram, you know I've been really into baseball and sportswear in general lately, and I had the perfect matching baseball top to go with these shorts, so yeah, had to style them together. Also, this outfit is super breathable. I will be wearing this like every single day because it is hot and humid in New York in the summer. Lastly, I put this Moschino cheap and chic green striped skirt and this leather belt by Streets Ahead together for a sort of like edgier take on an otherwise pastel look. So yeah, let me know which outfit you like the best. Build your dream closet for less by shopping on ThredUp. Use my code Mina to get 35% off plus free shipping on your first order. Last month, one of the things happening in the culture, specifically my culture as a YouTuber, Watcher Entertainment got into controversy when they announced they were quitting YouTube to launch a new streaming platform where people would have to pay $5.99 a month to access any future content. If you're unfamiliar, Watcher is a production studio and media company founded by ex-BuzzFeed employees Ryan Bergara, Shane Madej, and Stephen Lim. All of them used to create content for BuzzFeed back in the day, and eventually they all left the company because they wanted ownership over their own videos, which is totally fair and the reason why a bunch of other BuzzFeed employees also left the company. And also, I think that like Ryan and Shane's series for BuzzFeed called BuzzFeed Unsolved was like the most popular series on the BuzzFeed channel, and they were not getting like adequately paid for that achievement. The birds are going crazy today. Hello, spring. So since they left BuzzFeed, they launched Watcher Entertainment, which is hosted on YouTube, and they were doing pretty well. But following this new announcement, they faced major backlash from their fans, and a few days later, the team quickly scrambled to release a follow-up with amendments.
This is our final goodbye to YouTube.
1 week later.
We messed up.
They are still going to be putting videos on YouTube, but their streaming platform will just be offering the same videos a month in advance. There were a lot of reasons why fans were upset. Some people felt the company was budgeting poorly because that was the main reason that they cited for starting this new venture, that they needed more money. But a lot of people were like, we don't need high production. We actually like low production. Please don't charge us for high production.
It's the right thing to do.
It's not. I hope that helps.
Others thought they were being hypocritical by trying to become like BuzzFeed themselves, in the sense that they were trying to scale up to be a bigger media company. Regardless of the reason, I personally believe that this announcement also faced so much discontent because of subscription fatigue. People are tired of having to pay for everything every single month. There's only a finite amount of money the average person can shell out for these services. So, you know, if you're launching something that people are interested in, most of the time, they'll have to unsubscribe from something else before they can subscribe to this new thing. So obviously, like whatever you're offering on this new streaming platform has to be able to compete with like Netflix, which has over 18,000 titles. And also I feel like there's just like a general like distaste towards like something that was once given out for free and now like that same product is being charged. I will get back to Watcher in a bit. I'm not a T channel, so, I don't want to make a whole video, a breakdown about them, about the situation. But the way that the situation has unfolded brought up a lot of thoughts and questions for me personally about the current state of media, and I wanted to explore those questions. So today I'm going to be diving into subscription fatigue. We'll be covering the rise of Netflix, why movies and TV seem to suck today, and the importance of owning content. So first, a history lesson. I want to discuss the rise of Netflix from DVD rental underdog to streamer champion because Netflix really paved the way for the streaming model that we have currently. How did they get here? If you're old enough to remember, Netflix first started as a mail-to-order DVD rental business in 1997 by Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph. The big pull for Netflix was that they didn't have late fees because at the time, physical video rental stores like Blockbuster operated a lot like libraries in the sense that you had to pay a late fee if you returned the movie too late. Hastings has actually said his idea for Netflix was inspired by him having to pay a $40 late fee to Blockbuster for not returning Apollo 13 on time.
I remember it because I was so embarrassed about it, I didn't want to tell my wife.
The interesting thing about Blockbuster was that the company's profits were actually largely driven by penalties it levied on customers. So basically the thing that pissed off customers the most was the main thing keeping Blockbuster in business, which is always a questionable business model. However, Netflix's model wasn't feasible either because of one key reason. Customers had to wait for the mail. This was like prior to Amazon Prime level delivery speed. Neil Hunt, the company's chief product officer, said, "Our original model didn't work. We needed to overcome the shipping delay. It just wasn't a high enough value product to overcome the delivery waiting time. We spent a lot of money to market to and attract new customers, and they wouldn't be repeat renters. We were spending $100 to $200 to bring in a customer, and they would make one $4 rental. There was no residual value." To overcome the delivery lag and improve the overall value, Hastings devised the model of a prepaid subscription service. This DVD on-demand service offered members 4 DVD rentals per month with no due dates or late fees for a $16 monthly charge. Prepaid return envelopes were sent with each delivery. The program also featured an automatic replenishment option, so members would select a list of films, and each time they returned one, the next in the queue, like on that list, was automatically shipped to them. Hunt explains that with this move, Netflix turned the disadvantage of delivery time into having a movie at home all the time. The value to Netflix of having our movies in the customers' homes at all times was our key insight. Very interesting. Still, the company was struggling to compete with Blockbuster. Reports suggest that Hastings attempted to sell Netflix to Blockbuster not once, but a few times in 2000. But then everything changed when Netflix offered online streaming. Netflix officially began offering streaming movies and television shows in 2007. In 2010, it offered its first streaming-only subscription plan in select countries, and by 2016, this plan was available in 190 countries. House of Cards was another big game changer for the company. So the TV series was Netflix's first foray into original video content, and it ended up earning 56 Emmy nominations over the course of its run from 2013 to 2019.
You know when you're watching your favourite Netflix show, and after 5 straight episodes, it's like, you want to be in it.
Sir, I think you'll find the information on the senator to be invaluable.
A heartbeat away from the presidency and not a single vote cast in my name. Democracy is so overrated.
As a result, Netflix was probably even more convinced to pour tons of money into building out their content library, a decision that some industry experts touted as reckless because, for a 5-year period after 2013, the company's annual content spend shot up an average of 39% each year, while subscribers and revenue grew at 29% and 35% respectively. Since the success of Netflix, legacy medias like Disney, Warner Brothers Discovery, Paramount, and NBC Universal scrambled to compete and launched their own streaming platforms as well. Content spending ballooned across the industry, with each company spending tens of billions of dollars to create new shows and films and to license old popular ones in a race to win over the most subscribers. For example, NBC offered $100 million a year to stream The Office exclusively on their service Peacock for 5 years, beating Netflix's offer of $90 million a year. CEO Ken Solomon of the Tennis Channel, who once ran Universal Studios Television, recalled when his budgets for top cable TV shows like Law & Order were still below $2 million an episode. He said, "I thought budgets were out of control back then." But in the streaming era, budgets have inflated. Amazon shelled out a record $465 million on just its first season of a Lord of the Rings prequel series. Disney developed more than a dozen superhero shows for its Disney Plus platform, with each episode costing around $25 million. But despite all this content spending, only 3 US video subscription services have managed to turn a profit in the 17 years since Netflix launched the streaming revolution. Netflix, Hulu, and most recently, Warner Brothers Discovery. One of the big issues these streaming companies were facing and are still facing is that it's just hard to maintain subscriber growth and keep subscribers. In the last 4 years, the weighted average churn rate for US streamers has almost tripled to 5.5%. According to a new report from the streaming analytics firm Antenna. So what that means is that like in 2023, although streamers gained 164.7 million gross subscriptions, they also recorded 140 million cancellations, which, isn't too shabby. They're still gaining more than they're losing, except the fact that gross subscriptions are slowing down overall. Subscription growth fell to 10.1% in 2023, down from 21.6% in 2022. It's a little worrisome for the future, for sure. Mark DeBevois, CEO and board director of Bright Cove, said, "All of these companies spent more money than they likely should have." Now, media companies are trying to make streaming more profitable through more traditional means, like introducing advertising, licensing content to other platforms, cracking down on password sharing, bundling with pay TV, and of course, everyone's favorite technique, increasing subscription prices. So in the US today, Netflix's standard plan, 2 streams, no ads, is currently $15.49 a month. And the premium tier, which is 4 streams, costs $19.99 a month. Last summer, Netflix got rid of the basic tier without ads, which had cost $9.99 a month, to drive customers to choose between the $6.99 a month with ads or a higher priced tiers. Last fall, Disney Plus's ad-free price increased from $10.99 a month to $13.99 a month, with Hulu's ad-free plan jumping from $14.99 to $17.99 a month. Virtually every service has raised their prices last year: HBO, Peacock, Paramount Plus, Discovery Plus, and Amazon Prime. With increased prices and ads, many people have started comparing these streaming services to cable TV, and even going so far as to say that cable TV was better. One of the arguments I've seen against streaming is that with these massive content libraries, streaming actually takes up like way more brain power than the traditional method of just like flipping through channels. It's analysis paralysis. You just have like too much choice, and figuring out what movie or show to watch can, at least in my experience, take as long as just watching like an entire show. Also, as Vince Mancini writes on his Substack, we're fast approaching a point when trying to maintain a nest of streaming subscriptions is going to become more expensive, not to mention a huge pain in the ass, than just paying one company who, shall we say, bundles them. The irony, of course, is that streaming is actually becoming more and more like cable TV every day. Historian Catherine Kramer Brownell explains, like their cable predecessors, streaming companies have lured people in with promises of a better and cheaper viewing experience. Now that they have a robust subscriber base, they're in the process of raising rates while also introducing more commercials and bundling programming to make customers pay more and more. In a more like positive spin on taking streaming and making it more like cable, Criterion Channel, which is arguably the premier streaming program, they launched a cool new feature recently called Criterion 24/7, which basically mimics a cable TV channel. So some mysterious person in the company chooses the movie roster, and if you click on the channel, you can enter mid-movie. The only problem that I have with it right now, and granted it's still like new, is literally introduced in April, is that you can't actually see what's playing, like the title of what's playing. Like you have to go online to see like what movie is being played, which I don't know. I feel like that's an easy fix. Get on it, Criterion. However, the difference between cable TV and streaming is that at least when cable companies tried to raise prices in the late 1980s, politicians called these business practices unfair to their constituents. But now it seems like it's an inevitable thing that no one can stop. Brownell says this is a sign of just how inured Americans have become to the whims of corporations trying to squeeze their customers. Yikes. Maybe it would be easier to accept the price gouging if the content was actually getting better, but many people feel like it's actually getting worse. Alex Kranz wrote for The Verge, Netflix's programming strategy currently seems to revolve around putting established successes from other companies out there and hoping no one notices that Netflix isn't doing a lot of really good originals of its own.
This is Paris!
A potential issue with not offering enough quality original content is that people could have less loyalty towards Netflix in comparison to like other companies. As Kranz explains, if there's a choice between spending on Netflix's giant grab bag of stuff and Apple TV's pretty pristine library of well-made science fiction shows, a science fiction nerd might go with Apple TV. I also think that just like with the way that shows have been jumping from platform to platform, so for example, like Sex and the City was on HBO and now it's on Netflix, like there's not a lot of permanence, which I will also talk about a bit with these TV show selections. So if a company is not really hosting any original content that's good, then yeah, there's just like less reason for people to stick around because, you know, you could have ownership over The Office right now, but then like in 5 years, it might be on some other channel and people might be like, I'd be willing to wait until it gets onto the channel that I like the most. I do think there are some good movies and shows that have come out on Netflix though, like I don't want to slander the company too much, but I do agree that the streaming environment overall has led to less creative and arguably worse quality movies and TV than we've had before. Alex Slotnick explains why that is like really well. Where a DVD sale was once contingent on you liking a movie, a Netflix monthly payment has nothing to do with the quality of any given piece of media, as long as you're engaged enough in aggregate to stick around. That's not to say Netflix doesn't produce some outstanding and bona fide art, but it does mean that we're encouraged to engage with a bottomless pit of content rather than form a lasting bond with any single work. Yeah, I mean, Netflix will continue making money as long as they have like good enough movies, meaning they have little incentive right now to make great movies in-house. Speaking of DVD sales though, on his Hot Ones episode, Matt Damon talked about how DVD sales were like a big factor in allowing for creative freedom in the 90s.
The movies that we used to make, you could afford to not make all of your money when it played in the theater because you knew you had the DVD coming behind the release, and 6 months later you'd get a whole nother chunk. It would be like reopening the movie almost. And when that went away, that changed the type of movies that we could make.
Throughout the later 20th century, the way that movies could make money was through the box office, and then even if the movie bombed, later DVD sales could still turn the film into a success. For example, Fight Club was a box office bomb, grossing $37 million in America on a $63 million budget. Not because the movie was bad, but because it was marketed badly. Edward Norton, who plays the main character in the film, has talked about it, saying, I think there was a reluctance on the part of some of the people who were actually marketing it to embrace the idea that it was funny. And honestly, I think they felt indicted by it. I think if you felt more like the guy who plays my boss in the film, then you tended to not like the film. But also, it just was a tough one to distill. And yeah, there's this interview of Brad Pitt and Edward Norton that's really funny during their press tour. And it's just like the way that they promote the movie, you can tell they're having difficulty with it. And to their credit, it is kind of confusing to explain what it's about without giving like the whole plot away.
It's tough to put a label on it because I have never seen anything quite like it.
Yeah, it's an unusual, it's very, very thick with ideas. Almost.
It's a philosophy class or something.
I
It's
think
movie
so,
you go
yeah,
watch,
philosophy,
and then you find yourself
theology.
talking, you know?
Yeah.
So I do feel for them in that sense. The director, David Fincher, wanted to take a creative approach to the film's marketing. He directed a couple of fake PSA videos where Norton and Pitt, as their characters, advised moviegoers to turn off their cell phones, adding weird lines like,
"No one has the right to touch you in your bathing suit area."
Fincher's idea was to take an in-your-face, assaultive approach to the marketing, which is actually way more in line with the tone of the movie overall, and I think would have worked better. But Fox preferred to play it safe by selling the film as a big studio film with movie stars, and marketed Fight Club at wrestling events, making it seem like a straight action movie. But then the movie poster they chose was really artsy, so people were just confused what this movie was supposed to be about, and had less incentive to go see it in person.
There's a weird pathology in marketing departments, and they honestly believe, I to the core of my being, I believe that this is true. They believe that it's their job to save it. They really do. That's their contribution.
The movie was predicted to bomb close to opening weekend, so Fincher decided to take a vacation to Bali that weekend for a little peace of mind. He's so me-coded. He later reflected on the poor performance. People at the restaurant Morton's would pat you on the shoulders like you lost a loved one. The vibe at CAA, his agency at the time, was very much, it's good, you've experienced this, and that you can understand we can sway you from making these kinds of life-altering, possibly career-destroying decisions for yourself. I just got up and excused myself. And later on, I had a conversation and said, how dare you? I'm really okay with this movie. But despite the bombing, the film went on to sell 6 million DVDs, which is probably why it's become one of the most popular and highly ranked movies today. And I'm sure its success has actually given David Fincher way more sway in fighting against any producers who don't fully trust his vision. Nowadays, it seems like most movies aren't even released at the box office and are just made direct to streaming, which is also a problem because streaming habits are a lot different than theater-going habits. In movie theaters, you're not allowed to use your phone, for instance, but when you watch TV at home, you can obviously do whatever you want. And most of the people that I talk to say they watch movies and shows on their TV while browsing their phone, though they know it's a bad habit. And I've done it too. Like, if I'm watching reality TV, I'm not paying attention fully. But this viewing pattern is starting to affect how shows are being made. Writer, producer, director Justine Bateman told The Hollywood Reporter last year, I've heard from showrunners who are given notes from the streamers that this isn't second screen enough. Meaning the viewer's primary screen is their phone and the laptop, and they don't want anything on your show to distract them from their primary screen, because if they get distracted, they might look up, be confused, and go turn it off. I heard somebody use this term before. They want a visual music. When showrunners are getting notes like that, are they able to do their best work? No. I mean, it's really crazy, like, the concept of that, because it shows that a lot of streamers, like, don't actually care if people are paying attention to what they're showing, what they're offering on the platform. They care more about the fact that, like, the stream is just running all the way through. So I don't know if this has affected movies yet, but I think Quentin Tarantino sums up the profit-first mindset that streamers have pretty well. And I'm not picking on anybody, but apparently for Netflix, Ryan Reynolds has made $50 million on this movie, and $50 million on that movie, and $50 million on the next movie for them. Well, good for him that he's making so much money, but these movies don't exist in the zeitgeist. It's almost like they don't even exist. Basically, what he's saying is that movies that are made for the purposes of these streamers tend to just not be memorable. Another issue people have with streaming is that we don't actually own anything, even though we're paying for something. This also means that streaming services have the ability to add and remove movies or shows that we like whenever they want and without consulting anyone or without consulting us.
Why didn't you ask me before?
The most annoying thing is that if they remove a movie, we sometimes don't have the option to watch it anywhere else because they like bought the exclusive rights to it. So we have to wait until they list it again or until another streaming company buys the rights to it and lists it. And some movies that are not seen as bankable enough to warrant licensing fees have literally no digital presence and maybe won't ever. I came across this struggle because a couple years ago, I was trying to watch the movie Life Size with Tyra Banks and Lindsay Lohan again because I was covering it for a video. I forgot what I was doing with that movie exactly, but I will remember that I couldn't find it anywhere. Like there was nowhere that I could rent it digitally. There was nowhere I could stream it. It was like this movie didn't even exist. And then I did end up finding like a stream that someone had uploaded onto Dailymotion, like in parts with like Dutch subtitles. And I used that to watch it. I don't even know if this is up anymore because I think it's piracy, so it might have been taken down. But yeah, it's just annoying. There are so many movies out there that probably I will never find out exist because they have no digital footprint online. And one of the things that I love the most about like video rental stores was that I would just go through and like pick up a movie that, you know, I wouldn't have discovered unless I was going through a whole catalog of movies that existed. And sometimes I would find something really special. Like for example, Kimba the White Lion. Because I was a child, I picked that one up and I really liked that movie until I lost it. And then my parents had to pay a pretty gnarly fee because, you know, we lost the movie, which was not great. But other than that, I really appreciated the fact that I was able to watch that movie. I wouldn't have discovered it otherwise. Anyway, this kind of like model is also dangerous in a censorship way too. For example, Disney Plus sometimes shows movies that first start with the message, "This film has been modified from its original version. It has been edited for content." And we won't know what was edited from the original cut unless we also have a copy of an old DVD. But if we did have a copy of an old DVD, we wouldn't be streaming it, so.
Don't fool with the babysitter. Don't with the babysitter.
As Richard Brody wrote for The New Yorker, that's not the case when one holds in one's lap a book that one owns, pops a disc into a player, or lays a needle on a record. Along with the specific aesthetic of movies one views, there's an economic aesthetic at work too in each type of transaction. Having a movie in hand that's paid for once, or paying forever and owning nothing but memories and promises. Even if you buy something digitally though, it doesn't even mean it's yours forever still. For example, if you buy an ebook, it'll most likely be registered to a specific e-reader company email address. If you lose that email address, or if you want to change to another company's e-reader, you lose all the ebooks that you've bought so far. In 2023, Google decommissioned its game streaming service Stadia. So current users were told that they would receive refunds for the licenses of their purchases within the Stadia ecosystem. But the point is, something that they purchased is no longer there, regardless of whether or not they got a refund for it. As director Guillermo del Toro tweeted last year, physical media is almost a Fahrenheit 451, where people memorized entire books and thus became the book they loved. Level of responsibility. If you own a great 4K HD, Blu-ray, DVD, etc., of a film or films you love, you are the custodian of those films for generations to come. This doesn't only affect movies, by the way. Doing this job, I've come across a lot of dead articles because the server that hosted them no longer exists. It's shut down. Archive.org is actually a lifesaver. I owe it my life, but there's tons of blog pages on Tumblr and LiveJournal that are just no longer discoverable. And sometimes if I do find an old LiveJournal page, the way that the old internet worked was that many people had to upload photos onto hosts like Flickr and PhotoBucket because there was just no way to post a photo directly onto the blogging platform. But then I've noticed that PhotoBucket must have purged their storages or something in the last couple years because a lot of the photos on these old blog pages are now blank. And no one thought to archive these small pages, so everything's just effectively gone. It's like there's a dark period from like 2000 to like 2013 where it's just really hard to find stuff that was posted in that time. I was also a member of all these forums, and those forums don't exist anymore. And I just feel like forums were also a really important part of seeing how people communicated online in the early internet. And yeah, they don't exist. So we lost that historical data. And I'm actually realizing I really need to get a hard drive because I don't have copies of any of my videos. I delete them once I post them because storage reasons. But if YouTube just shuts down one day, all the work I've done in the past 3 years would just like disappear. So yeah, I need to get on that immediately. Bringing it back to movies, the lack of physical archiving on the consumer part is one thing, but not even the studios are saving all their data, and this is because of how cumbersome current technology is. So almost every film these days is digital data. Even if the filmmaker starts off shooting on classic 35mm film, they almost always end up turning it into a digital form to add effects and just like make it look right. And this digital version is called a digital intermediate, or DSM. And the cool thing about DSM is that it can actually be used to make a brand new 35mm print, and it'll actually look better than trying to keep an old film print safe for years and years. However, keeping digital data safe is harder and more expensive than keeping old film reels. Right now, this digital data is getting stored on LTO tapes, which are meant to last 15 to 30 years, but most of the time, companies only trust these tapes for about 5 years, and this is because the machines that read the LTO tapes keep evolving. Every couple of years, they come out with a new version of these tape readers, and the new ones can't always understand the older tapes. It's like trying to watch a DVD with a VHS player. It doesn't work. And so every 5 years or so, each film in the archive needs to be migrated over to a more like technologically advanced version, which requires time and money. It requires new tapes, new drives, staff to copy and verify the film data. For example, film archivist Dino Everett cited a recent project to restore the 1948 classic, The Red Shoes. He says, it was archived on LTO 3. When LTO 5 came out, the quote was $20,000 to $40,000 just to migrate it. Films like The Red Shoes that continue to make money are probably safe, but for films that are bombs or for films that are produced by independent studios with way less money than the big ones, there's a good chance we'll lose some of the films. It reminds me of this Tumblr post. I do think there's something sad about how largely only the literature that's considered especially good or important is intentionally preserved. I want to read stuff that ancient people thought sucked enormous balls. And this is a joke, but I actually live in fear that we are going to be like one day the ancient people, and people are gonna want to read like this shitty boy band fan fiction that exists on Wattpad, and it's not going to exist anymore because no one wanted to archive it. And this isn't entirely speculation, by the way. Warner began classifying its 8,000 feature films and 5,000 TV shows into two categories: those it will manage, aka preserve, and those it deems perishable. Managed assets could include not just the finished film or show, but marketing materials and some deleted scenes too, whereas perishable material may include dailies for features or unused footage. It will be stored for some time in the archive, but may not be migrated ever. And, to decide what's perishable and what's not, the studio considers things like how successful the film has been, how popular its stars are, and whether the film could have enduring or cult appeal. The hope for archivists is that we'll come up with better technology to replace the LTO method, hopefully sooner than later. But journalist Marty Perlmutter talked to a top technician at Technicolor, who said there's going to be a large dead period from the late 90s through 2020 where most media will be lost. So I wanted to talk a lot about Hollywood and streaming services because, I love film. And also because, Watcher is releasing a streaming platform, so I was thinking about these bigger platforms. But what's interesting and unique about Watcher is that they're different in the sense that they're also a team of content creators. And so right now they kind of exist in the new media space, though I have a feeling they're trying to lean more into traditional. I don't blame them for this decision because, as much as I love my job, social media platforms are scary as hell. Like, you never have any sort of job security, not only because of algorithms, but also because a platform can literally just go away. We're seeing this right now with TikTok. The US government has legally passed a ban against TikTok unless its parent company, ByteDance, a Chinese company, sells TikTok to an American company within the next 9 months. This is, of course, the dumbest and most insane thing to tell a company to do, and there's lots of xenophobia in it too, and it looks like as of now, ByteDance is not going to do that, and I can't blame them. But who knows? Maybe they figured they could make a ton of money, and billionaires love money more than anyone else. If TikTok does get banned in the US, that means that for any TikTokers who haven't cultivated a platform elsewhere, they're virtually screwed. I don't know exactly how many people fall into that category because I feel like most content creators exist on multiple platforms now. And that's because there's been an idea recently in the last few years that content creators have to exist on every single platform. In the before times, it was way more fragmented. You called yourself a YouTuber or a Viner. But nowadays, a lot of people tend to align themselves with the general content creator label because it's the catch-all for all social media. And also, all social media platforms are trying to converge and become one another, so you can just end up cross-posting. And most people on these platforms, they're not posting because they're addicted to posting content everywhere, but because of the precarity of platforms themselves. Content creators do not have a union. And I remember when the writer's strike was happening last year, there were conversations in my YouTuber group chats about how dangerous it is that we actually don't have a union and are fully at the mercy of these platforms. If, YouTube decides that they actually want to take 90% of my ad revenue, what can I do? What would I be able to do? Nothing. Sometimes the platform doesn't go away, with Vine, but they'll make changes and they won't communicate those changes to creators. For example, in 2018, Pinterest advised creators on the best SEO practices with the instruction that the first 5 pins that you save during the day will have the biggest priority. However, 1 week later, the company changed their mind and they removed that line from the best practices page. Companies also change algorithms seemingly all the time, and they keep their algorithms a secret. So all of us are basically playing a game every day, but the game is our financial livelihoods, which is so fun. I have no idea why some of my TikTok videos do better than others, or why some of my Instagram carousels do better than others. And I have some of my friends who say they're shadow banned, and no one knows why. So given all this headache, I can see why Watcher would want to try to create their own platform. I mean, a lot of content creators have a Patreon or paid Substack to give them more financial security. And for a long time, consumers were happy to support their favorite artists and creatives in this way. In a 2021 Vox article, editorial director Everdeen Mason explained why she pays creators. I'm 32 with no kids, no student loans, and no plans to buy a house again. I'm very much someone who will pay an artist for a thing that they've made. Patreon was founded by Jack Conte, a former YouTube musician, and Sam Yam. Sam Yam is such a great name, sorry. A co-founder of the mobile ad platform AdWhirl in 2013. When they launched the platform, Conte posted a video he'd made for an original song called Petals. He said the video cost him $10,000 to make and 3 months. You know, time is money too. And it got nearly 2 million views, but he made only $963 through YouTube's ad network. He wrote in a blog post, "This devaluing of art and creators is happening at a global scale. It actually makes my heart sink when I think of the magnitude of the web's systemic abuse of creative people." While there are a handful of Patreons that make tens of thousands of dollars every month, the majority of people on the platform are not making enough to be solely supported by it. I haven't been able to find recent info on this, but Brent Knepper wrote about the feasibility of Patreon as an income stream in 2017. He reported that in October 2017, only 2% of the creators who publicly shared their earnings made the equivalent of $7.25 an hour, or $1,160 a month, the federal minimum wage. I honestly think we've surpassed the golden age of Patreon. I don't really know anyone who would launch a page for the first time right now, mostly because it's really hard to compete with Patreons that have been around for years. And once again, there's only a finite amount of money people have to give to creators. And as I said earlier, people are developing subscription fatigue, not helped by streaming services increasing their prices and cracking down on password sharing. 57% of respondents to the Motley Fool Ascents 2024 subscription survey believe they're spending too much for their subscription services.
But now we're getting to the point where cable costs less than streaming services, and streaming services are starting to give you more ads than ever.
So the difficult thing that creators have to juggle is that if they launch a subscription program, they have to really consider the wants of their audiences, because those people are directly giving them income, and if you're not appealing to them, they are not going to pay you. And the disconnect that Watcher seemed to have with their audience is that it seems like Watcher wanted to keep making higher and higher production videos. Meanwhile, many audience members preferred a more lo-fi setup. For example, many Watcher fans have lamented in the comments and on Twitter and on Reddit about how they preferred BuzzFeed Unsolved over Ghost Files, which is like the Watcher version of BuzzFeed Unsolved. Among the reasons are complaints that Ghost Files is too overproduced and professional, whereas BuzzFeed Unsolved was more like off the cuff and genuine. I think there's also a charm about watching two amateurs play detective, which is like an archetype we see time and time again on actual TV shows.
I gotta dig a little deeper. There's no Pepe Sylvia. You gotta be kidding me. I got boxes full of Pepe.
Ryan and Shane also have a lot of parasocial followers, which can backfire because when you put a lot of work into production, it distances you from your fans because you start to resemble more of a legit television show rather than a homemade production. And some fans may not like that distance. Heavily produced videos do work for some people on YouTube, like Mr. Beast, who has 300 people working on his production team. But it's difficult to transition into it when your fans initially followed you for more lo-fi content. Ironically, though, BuzzFeed is actually way bigger of a production company than Watcher currently is, so it's funny that people felt that the Unsolved series was cozier. In the end, I think that they made a mistake, but I definitely feel for them as someone who has a similar job. There's always a desire to improve your editing, your scripting, your production, if you will. And especially as you get bigger and have more revenue streams, it seems like they were doing it all with Patreon, merch, sponsors, live shows. So it can feel like a waste to not invest some of that income and put it back into your video content. Also, before I started recording this video, I came across this newsletter essay from Ryan Broderick, who is talking about this. And he says something really interesting. He says that Watcher isn't totally to blame in their attempt to leverage into bigger productions because YouTube continues to push for more TV level production from its biggest channels, but does not financially scale in a way that makes that possible without losing your mind. And it's so true. I do feel like, especially in the video essay type of sphere, there is a pressure to be pushing out longer and longer and longer videos. I have seen videos on this website that are running for 6 hours long. And for me, I'm like, that's insane because I could never sit through a 6-hour video essay, but clearly a lot of people can because these videos do really well. And also the longer the videos, the more ads can get put in the videos. And so you get paid more by AdSense if you have longer form content. There's also this idea that longer form does better with the algorithm. I don't know if that's true or not. And so, yeah, there is this pressure to do more, even though, a lot of the times Like, the audience doesn't actually want you to do that much more. Also, it's just hard because these guys are real people. I read a few comments about how fans liked BuzzFeed Unsolved more because Ryan was more scared about entering these haunted houses, which was a fun dynamic in contrast with Shane, who didn't believe in ghosts.
Who in their right mind would be stoked to be in there by themselves? You know how much of a psychopath you have to be to enjoy that?
Oh, my goose, won't you tug on my shirt?
But obviously, if you've been entering haunted houses for years and you haven't been possessed yet, fingers crossed, knock on wood, I imagine you become a bit desensitized. If Ghost Files was a fictional TV show with fictional characters, the Ryan character would probably always be written as like someone a little bit more paranoid and easily stressed than the Shane character, because it's more entertaining that way. But it's not reflective of how work can change people over time. Anyway, this is the end of the video. Thank you all so much for listening. Let me know what your thoughts are on subscription fatigue and what you think about like movies and TV shows that are being made today versus how they were made in like, you know, the DVD era, like the 90s. I'd love to know. I do feel like there are some really good movies that have come out. Like, I don't want to be like so doomsday about it. Like, honestly, I loved Challengers. That was the most recent movie I saw. I loved... I'm like, there's so many good movies, and I'm like, I loved one movie. I love Challengers. I loved, there's gotta be something else. I loved The Holdovers. That was like a little bit ago. You know, I really like Saltburn, even though that was like a polarizing one. There are clearly like good movies coming out, so I don't know, like sometimes I feel like maybe it's because there's more bad movies that have come out than good movies that have come out because of just like the fact that we've been pushing way more movies and shows out now than ever before. I don't know if it's true that movies have gotten worse in general. I don't know. As I said, let me know. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you, ThredUp, once again for sponsoring Build Your Dream Closet for Less by shopping on ThredUp, and use my code Mina to get 35% off plus free shipping on your first order.